Today we're going to be talking about a fragrance that is no stranger to the community. In fact, a lot of people talk about it. It's especially appealing to the younger crowd. And I actually do really like it. The first time I smelt it, I feel like it was such an easy love at first sight. I will say it is very circumstantial for me as a 35-year-old man, but I have a lot of respect for the fragrance and the fragrance line in terms of how they have treated kind of this warm, sweet, spicy fragrance lane. And we're going to talk about it. So buckle up, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back in a second. All right, welcome to the channel. This is the Scent Bubble, where we talk about my fragrance journey. And currently we're running through my entire collection before we move on to kind of the more conceptual videos that are the more clickbaity topics that people want to hear from me. But so while we're going through my current collection, we're going to talk about a fragrance today that is from the house of Paco Rabanne, and this is 1 million. 1 million. So this fragrance, I feel a lot of young people, it'll be one of the first of 5 fragrances that they purchase. And when I say young people, I mean guys 25 and under. When you go to a Sephora or a Macy's, the 1 million bottle is very intriguing. You see this kind of brick of gold looking bottle, and then the word 1 million, and you're like, I gotta smell that. And I would say out of all the fragrances from Gucci and YSL and Versace and Acqua di Gio and Marc Jacobs and all that jazz, when you come across the Paco Rabanne section, all of the bottles look very unique. They got robot bottles, bricks of gold, different characters, chalices. All of their bottles are extremely unique. So that's the first draw. And then the second draw is just that in terms of sweet, warm, spicy fragrances, they are all over it, And I think, again, I've said this many times, young people gravitate towards sweetness initially, warm, sweet, spicy, because it makes you feel romantic, makes you feel slightly older. And young girls like sweet. So it's easy to kind of explore that side of the palette because it's very inviting, warm, cozy, has some romance, has some edge to it. And I think Paco Rabanne has done some incredible things with that. Now, it is on the heavier side, so I think as you age and get older, you really have other options available to you, and that's where it becomes difficult because finding what you actually like in that category becomes difficult because a lot of fragrances have taken on the challenge of warm, spicy, ambery, borderline gourmand, cinnamon, vanilla. They've taken those notes and done a lot where the fragrances are so similar, it becomes a little bit difficult to pick because you have to lean on certain note characteristics that you really love. This is the look of the bottle, if you haven't seen it already, just for all of my newbies out there in the fragrance world. So you kind of have this brick of gold. This sucker does get heavily fingerprinted very easily. So if you see it in a Sephora, don't be surprised if you see 150 oily thumb marks all over this presentation. But before we go into the note breakdown, I just want to give some initial thoughts. I do feel like this is a beast mode fragrance, 9+ on the scale, 9 out of 10 beast mode performance. Initial fragrance thoughts is that it's warm, it's ambery, it's spicy, it's sweet, it's got cinnamon. It almost has this backbone of like bubble gum, but only about 10%, I would say. It's not a bubblegummy fragrance. To me, it's not bubblegummy unless it's like 20% plus, like your off non 9 p.m. type vibes. But it does have a backbone of a very clear cut Bazooka Joe bubblegum, bubble yum original type backbone to an overall amber, cinnamon, sweetness. But I'm sure there's some complexity here because nonetheless, you would listen to a note profile like that and feel like, that it's very kind of so playful that it isn't elegant, but I would challenge you here to put your nose on this because it is very much a layered complexity in the fragrance. It's not so linear in its warm spice that it lacks a nose journey, so to speak, where you can smell different dimensions of it. Because for me, up front, I get a blast of warm cinnamon. Then I get a mid of kind of like, I feel like there might be some woody, amber, and some other accords. And then in the backbone, I get more of that dry down of that like bubblegummy other goodness going on. So I think it's very warm, cozy, definitely would shine in cold weather. This is not a hot weather fragrance. This is an indoor fragrance, cooler temperatures. The cooler, the better. I would say that this safely is not gourmand. The cinnamon sweetness only makes up about 60% of the fragrance, but the backbone of kind of the bubblegum, almost floral wood spice backbone of 40% kind of tames it out and doesn't give it a representation of smelling like food. This just smells more holiday, but more on the romantic side of holiday and not quite Christmas or Thanksgiving, apple pie type vibes. It's not quite there. Apologize for that camera freeze, but we should be back online and good now. So let's go ahead and look at the actual notes. Okay, so we've got mandarin orange up top. I do get that tinge, to be honest. I wouldn't have smelt it if it wouldn't have said it, if that makes sense. But I definitely smell a kind of orangeness about the warm cinnamon. Grapefruit, not so much. Mint, not so much either. I mostly get the mandarin orange, the cinnamon spice. This rose note, I would say as the fragrance dries down, you can definitely smell it on the test strip. I question if you'll even get the rose grapefruit mint combo on skin once it warms up and gets more amber leathery. I think that leather note is really unique here because the leather and woodsy note give it this kind of, here's what I'll say. Grapefruit, mint, rose, leather, wood. Let's go down from top to bottom. I feel like those are backbone elements to each stage of the top, mid, and bottom that sophisticate this smell from just smelling like cinnamon, amber, and orange. It has weight behind the fragrance, but it also has some mystery where just each second from the top, mid, and bottom, you kind of question what might be in it because it smells very medley-like. On the dry down, I think you definitely get that leather accord, but this is predominantly to get your nose around what I'm smelling. On the dry down, it almost turns into 50 to 60% cinnamon spice. The sweetness is predominantly orange with the tiniest hint of rose. And then 20% of it, I would say, is leather, wood. I mean, that base, really, amber, leather, wood, and patchouli. You definitely get a sizable amount of that, probably like 20 or 30%. So I like it because the initial blast is so warm and sweet that by the time it finally dries down, it kind of dries down into this very more mature, sophisticated, woody, amber, spicy fragrance, more so than kind of the sweet orange cinnamon. Even though it's there, it's no longer the front and center part of the show. It distributes about 50-50, maybe even 60-40, leaning on the spicy amber woody accords and the leather. And I think the leather is what really matures this fragrance out. As far as age, we talked about season. As far as age, I think it's definitely a 20 and up fragrance. Definitely 20 and up. I wouldn't put a cap on or a ceiling on the age. I think 20 and up could definitely work. It's definitely a beast mode fragrance, projection, scent trail, sillage. Not quite off and on 9 p.m., but maybe one step below that. In the initial hour, it's going to be room filler for sure. And cost. What are we looking at for cost? So right now, currently on Amazon, A 50 ml is going for $50. 100 ml is going for 85. So I think that's why this fragrance is so popular. The level of sophistication, the fact that it's a warm, spicy fragrance, I think it really appeals to 25 and under, being able to cop this fragrance for less than $80. I will say this. Here's a fragrance that, to me, is dangerously close to 1 million. It's not marketed as such, but I want to spray this. This is Kadlaj's Shiaka Blue. This fragrance is like $25. And smelling 1 million immediately made me think about it. Okay, so this fragrance is like 1 million, but like 30% fresher. And the bubblegum note is just a little bit more pleasing in here. So this is almost like Bleu de Chanel. This is like 1 million, but you gave it 30 to 40% of a Bleu de Chanel freshness and a little bit ramp up on the bubblegum. This is an amazing fragrance to me and almost makes the 1 million DNA a lot more versatile. For $25, 100 ml, you can have the 1 million DNA. Yeah, it's not as warm and cinnamony, but it's more Bleu de Chanel route, which freshens up the fragrance on the top. Still has warm and spicy and bubblegum and cinnamon, but makes the fragrance more fresh, which means you can honestly wear this any season, any reason. This takes you out of the cold category and puts you into any season, any reason category, but it still has the essence and richness of that warm, spicy, amber, cinnamon, 1 million DNA. So that's a consideration. There's a lot of fragrances that dupe the warm and spicy DNA, but immediately I thought of this fragrance as, okay, if someone likes 1 million, even though 1 million's cheap, but doesn't live in a predominantly cold climate area, this is going to be a very circumstantial grab. The 1 million, have this little touch of Bleu de Chanel freshness added to it, and now this is almost like 1 million with a touch of Bleu de Chanel, but with a vibe of somewhat Afnan, a little more spicy than that. The Afnan 9 p.m. This would be an excellent choice if you love this DNA but want to rock it year round. So definitely consider that. This is Kadlaj, and it's Shiaka blue bottle. They have a red and a blue bottle. Get the blue bottle if you're interested in an alternative. But nonetheless, if you're just considering, if you're in a cold weather area or you just want a pure, hardcore, warm, spicy cinnamon fragrance, 1 million you really can't go wrong with. It's a great fragrance. It is very heavy, which I believe makes it more circumstantial, gives it a little less versatility. But for the right situation, this packs a punch in the romance, in the holiday, in the warm spice category, and just in the uniqueness. I think Paco Rabanne's fragrances certainly have dominated the lane that they're in, and for the price point, I can fully understand why. Because they took a warm, spicy holiday type fragrance and gave it a serious backbone of sophistication and nuance. But yeah, is there anything else I need to say about this fragrance? Sound off in the comments if I've left anything out. Again, I try to freestyle these to kind of, I feel like when I freestyle, I more clearly communicate the important aspects, I held this bottle up, of a fragrance that influenced my purchase. And I think that it translates better for you guys in terms of helping you to decide if you want to buy this. Again, this is a fragrance where anywhere you go, you can try this and put your nose on it without buying samples, without needing to think about clones and dupes. But again, if you're on a budget and you smell that DNA and you don't want to kill $100 on a fragrance, go this route. You'll have a lot more versatility with it. And it's only $25-30, and then you can go mess with some other DNAs. But this is also an incredible fragrance. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you for rocking in the scent bubble. Again, if there was any value provided in this episode, let me know how. And, like, comment, and subscribe. I know that's very cliche to say, but it really does go a long way, especially for little guys like me in the fragrance community. But ultimately, even if you didn't do any of that stuff, a comment would just be amazing. I'd love to hear your guys' takes on the helpfulness of these videos, where you're at in your collection, if you own any of these fragrances, or if you have any questions about purchasing. So thank you so much for rocking with me in the scent bubble. Y'all have a blessed day. And until next time, peace.